We may not know where you should go, but we can make sure you can see and hear it. I guess you might as well get started and start to make the sheets go around. You done? This hand would be helpful. Here they are. Here they are. Doesn't matter. What? Press really hard, it doesn't matter if it's that thinking. All right, so hello everybody, welcome to AVTCORE. Whatever. So we have Brian Rosen taking notes in the Etherpad.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody else who wants to join him and can get it to load? It's apparently non-trivial. But check, back him up. That will be good. And we have. I'm keeping an eye on the Jabber, and I see a few other people who are here keeping an eye on the Jabber. So that's good. And I see we have a number of remote participants, which is nice. Anyone wants to talk, if you can, and wish to, and don't feel like you're too unphotogenic, use the Medico remote queue if you want to speak. Otherwise, if you'd rather not, you can relay to the room of all of our Jabber starts to do that. Bluetooths are going around. If you're here, make sure to sign it, and you have a Medico, which we're happy with. Note well. Hopefully this is even the correct version of Note well, but I've kind of lost track, but it's probably. But you should note well the correct version. I'm sure you see it somewhere else, and maybe even ours also. And so make sure you're aware of that as necessary. Is my mic not picking me up? Is it off, or is it? Or am I just not close enough? How's this? Can you hear me now or not? No. All right. Let's see. Yeah. You can hear me in the room. That'll help you. It's sort of embarrassing for the audio video. Is this better? No. Yes. Yeah. Excellent. Hello. Let's try that again so the people remotely can hear me. Welcome to AVTCORE. Let's run through this again. Welcome to AVTCORE. I also want to make sure that I have on the recording who took the notes so I can remember. So Brian Rosen taking the notes. Anybody else who wants to join the Etherpad can do so. We have a few people in Jabber. If you're on Medico, use it if you're able and feel sufficiently telegenic. Otherwise, you can prefix to the room, and some people will relay for you. Note well. Note very well. And this is our agenda. You listed 30 minutes for the agenda for this. I guess because we have to yell at Mo. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we'll start with agenda bash and status update. Then we will do the only draft we're currently presenting today, which is the RMCAT congestion control feedback, which Colin will be presenting. And then any other business. And then Ron, we also have some slides for Ronnie to present on behalf of the payload working group, so that because they're not formally meeting here today, but it's largely the same group of people. I guess we'll do that at the end, or when do you want to? I mean, okay. So no new documents since last time, but next slide. We still have, we still have a number of things sitting in cluster 238, which is not surprising to anybody who's familiar with this area of the IETF. Frame marking is, LRR is still waiting on frame marking. Multiplex guidelines, where are we on that?
I think we just finished the working group last call and waiting for the AD to follow.
This has been on is that on? It's off too? Oh, it's on. Okay. On multiplex guidelines, I am partially through a review on that. I'm going to try to get it done before the AD transition, in which case, I guess, you want me to go ahead and kick off last call if I get it done? If I don't get it done, then it will be Barry's to do so.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so, but yeah, that's the other thing of note. Ben is stepping down as our AD, and so we want to thank him for excellent work for the past 4 years. And Barry will be taking over. So then frame marking, which I believe we had a working group last call on, and there were comments, and the author, who was hiding in the back, hoping I don't notice. Oh no, there you are.
Yes, there was one comment from Magnus that I'll get to an update for hopefully today. It's just to clarify in the diagram for using the long format, but omitting the TL0 pick index and lid fields, so you can have a short version of the long format. Just to show it visually, nothing wrong in the text, but for clarity.
All right. So, and then.
And you asked for an update. You asked for a clarification of the LRR to go to the list, and so I'll do that right now. That should be the last two things.
All right. So yeah. So that at which point we probably, I've completely lost state. That would then satisfy everything in working with last call, and we can go to pub rec, I guess. All right. I think is that everything? Okay. Is that everything in here? Yeah. Yes. Hit I don't remember how this. Yeah. Okay. So that's the next tab over. And then see the button there that says press the button. Yeah. All right. And now it's call it now. Stand on the not at all ominous red X.
I prefer the red X to the red box. I don't know. Hi, so I'm Colin Perkins. I want to talk about the RTP congestion control feedback draft. If any of you were in RMCAT earlier in the week, you can stop paying attention until I get to about 2 slides before the end, because the first 3/4 of the presentation is exactly the same as the one I gave earlier in the week. So we have the draft on giving a generic feedback mechanism for packet loss, CCN marks, timing information that we're using for congestion control feedback. The draft's been around for a while. We got some implementation experience at the hackathon in Bangkok. Jonathan was leading that, and there are 3 or 4 people involved. I forget exactly who.
Three. Me, Sergio Mena, and Nils.
Right. Yeah. So we got some really useful feedback as a result of that. which we discussed at the Bangkok meeting in this working group. And we submitted the 0-3 draft just before Christmas, if I remember right, to try and reflect these experiences. This makes one minor change to the packet format, which will hopefully be the last one we're making, and a whole bunch of clarifications. Then earlier this week, there was yet another hackathon session on this, and we got some more experience, and Jonathan sent email about that to the RMCAT list yesterday.
And the AVT list.
And the AVT list as well? Yep. Okay, good.
Though once I figured out that it actually, the list is actually AVT.AVTCore, which I forget, but it's now available. Now it's now supported as an alias on the mailing list, so you can send to either. So
okay, yes. So obviously we haven't taken that into account yet, but I've got some comments on what to do at the end of the presentation. So in terms of the actual packet format change, the one thing we have done, rather than having beginning sequence and end sequence plus 1 as the two fields in the packet, is now beginning sequence and length, number of reports. This makes the logic in the rest of the specification a lot simpler, a lot easier. Also gives us a much easier way of specifying, there's no reports included, you just put a number of reports of 0. Hopefully it also simplifies the implementations. It certainly simplifies the specification. In addition to that, there are a bunch of clarifications. In particular, one of the big discussions we had last time was what is the value of the arrival timestamp? What does it mean, and what do you do for packets which arrive after the report? So the arrival timestamp is we clarified that it's time offset before the report timestamp in the packet, and we specified, and I forget exactly what we wrote, but there's an overrange indicator, and we specified what to do if a packet, if you're reporting on a packet which has arrived after the timestamp of the report, which seems like it shouldn't be possible, but it's possible if you have a delayed report if you've had to split the reports across multiple report blocks, you're putting them in a packet. So there are some corner cases like that. Similarly, we clarified exactly what is meant by the report timestamp to specify that it's the instant from which the arrival time offsets are calculated rather than the instant at which the report packet was generated, again, because you might be sending reports late because you've had to split them into two and because of MTU issues and all this sort of thing. We clarified that you should report on every active SSRC as a receiver rather than every SSRC that is being congestion controlled, because as a receiver you can't tell which SSRCs are being congestion controlled. What else did we do? There are a bunch of clarifications around duplicate reports. We have the case where it's possible to report on overlapping ranges in multiple reports. And we specified that if you mark a packet as received in one report, then you have to also mark it received in any later reports covering the same portion of the sequence number range. You can't renege on reception. Similarly, there are a bunch of clarifications around duplicate packets. We made it clear that if you get more than one copy of the packet, you should report the arrival time of the first copy of the packet which you receive. And if you're using ECN and one of the packets, an ECN marked packet gets duplicated, it's possible that not all of the duplicate copies of the packet will have the same ECN mark, depending where in the network it was duplicated and where it was marked. So if any of the copies are ECN-CE marked for congestion experienced, then you report that packet was, you report CE. Otherwise, you report the ECN mark of the first copy of the packet you receive. And again, if it's not congestion experienced, you should be getting the same ECN mark on all copies of the duplicate packet, but it's possible that it's marked ECT0, for example, and the two copies go through different paths in the network, and one is bleaching ECN and one isn't. So there's a whole bunch of annoying corner cases. The previous versions of the draft had a long discussion about what to do about outages and how to detect that there'd been a burst of packet loss and when to recover and all that. We took that text out. This is a general RTCP problem of how to detect that packets have stopped flowing and what to report and when. And the same approach you take for any other RTCP packets you should take for this. So we figured it wasn't worth trying to repeat that explanation again. In terms of signaling, there was a comment again from the hackathon, which the RTCP feedback format we have allows you to specify a particular set of payload types to which it applies. And we specified that you must, I think, specify a star to signal that it applies to all payload types in the session. Because the idea of applying feedback to congestion control feedback to only some payload types in the session but not others when an SSRC could change payload type just seemed a bit odd.
You have the syntax here wrong, you know.
Did I get the syntax
Yeah,
wrong?
it's ACCFP, which is the same mistake we had in the hackathon, which is why I noticed.
I'm wondering if it might be a bug in one of the drafts, because I'm fairly sure I copy-pasted this. So if we're all making the same mistake, maybe one of the ASDP drafts is inconsistent.
Might be.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. We should check that. And the final change, if I remember right, was we added a section to specify the relation to RFC 6679. And 6679 is the ECN for RTP RFC. And that RFC has a couple of things in it, most of what that RFC talks about is how you use ECN with RTP and how you mark the packets and how you signal that you're going to use ECN and how you validate that the ECN works over a particular path. It's also got a particular feedback format for sending ECN feedback. If you're using this congestion control feedback format, that it reports the same information which is in the RFC 6679 format, along with a bunch of other things. And you don't want to use both of them. So we specified what to do.
Look, just reading that now. Should have read it much earlier.
Yeah, I mean, but basically this says if you've negotiated the 6679 format and this, then you do the 6679 path probing and all that sort of thing, but use this for feedback.
Yeah, Jonathan, I mean, I think just as an individual, the issue here is that you say you must not offer both, but you might be in a position where you don't know whether your peer supports CCFB. So I think this is related to some of the other stuff I mentioned in my email. You might want to offer both, and then the answer should pick one, because you might be talking to a peer who might support NAC ECN or might support GCFB, and you don't know in advance. You say
but this is for the answer, isn't it?
Is that for the answer? It says the STP offer. Oh, I see. The offer includes it. No, it says the offer must include RTCFB, ACCFB, and must not include NAC ECN. I don't think it's what you want. I think what you want to say is the answer.
I think it should say you can offer both.
Yeah, I think what it should say is you can offer both.
You can offer both, but if you're using this format, you should not use the
and this is related to some of
ECN
the other stuff we talked about where we ran into similar issues trying to offer like some of the non-standardized congestion control law as well.
Yeah. So we should double check this text to make sure it says what we think it says. But yes. All right. So that was the status as of the 03 draft. We got some more feedback. I guess it's the same group of people doing the hackathon this time. And what were the issues here? So there was a bunch of signaling related issues, and there was a bunch of other things. So in terms of the signaling, there was a question about if you're bundling, if you're using this with bundle, is it possible to signal this for only some of the bundled media lines, or do you have to signal it for all of them? My guess is that probably the right answer is that you want to signal it for all of them, but I'd certainly like opinions on that. Yeah. A bunch of people nodding.
Jahed. I think that would be the default behavior as far as I can see.
we
I don't know,
probably-
like what I mean. The bundling is basically goes beyond my head, but
Yeah.
but the simplest thing would be like to do it for every one of them, and then basically how you treat how you feed those information to congestion control might depend, like whether you would like to do an like independent stream congestion control and bundle congestion control. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
I
basically
mean,
that.
we probably want to send, if we're sending feedback, we want to send feedback for everything,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
we let the sender figure out
Yeah.
how it wants to do
how it
congestion
works
control.
to do the
Yeah.
congestion control. Yes.
Harold?
I was looking at this point, and the only question in my mind is whether it should be formally identical or formally transport. I don't think it makes a difference, but it should be one of those two.
Yeah, so someone who understands bundle should tell me what to write in this document.
Is there such a person?
Yeah, okay.
Jahed, Christian Holmberg is not here, but as my colleague, perhaps I can request him to have a look at it and see if we can provide some feedback.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, I think the principle is that it should be in all the bundle lines, and we'll figure out the exact way of phrasing that.
Yeah. So note taker, make sure you have the head will ask Krister to, so that if he doesn't, we can nag him.
There was a comment that it would be useful to add an example for the SDP syntax, and since I messed it up as well, I think I would agree. But
I'm pretty sure this is right, but working my way through the SDP ABNF to determine that was a matter of just jumping through about 3 different RFCs and with slightly different ways of specifying ABNF, which is
yeah,
not the world's most fun thing to do.
And I also worked through those and came to a different conclusion. So
Yes.
we should check that and figure out exactly what this should be.
And I think this is the answer of what we want it to be, and the question is the ABNF right? So
But yeah, we should figure out what it should be and write it down so,
Yes.
so we're all consistent. Yeah. In terms of negotiating congestion control feedback, and this relates back to the issue with the ECN. Obviously there are a bunch of different ways of doing congestion control feedback. You probably only want to try and use one of them simultaneously. We should write down what to do if you get multiple ones of these, and that probably just says pick one and use that as the in the answer.
Jahed here again. I mean, so what we are offering an implicit and explicit way of congestion, right? Like getting some delay information, or I mean, so basically, if you have to like get information about congestion in different form, ECN or delay, there are like algorithm they can combine them. Like one of them, example is will be the NADA in ARMCAT. They actually could use both Scream.
no,
Could use both.
it's not. I'm more talking about, hey, yes, I can support CCFB. I could support transport CC. I could support explicit ECN. I could support, RAM
as a feedback.
Yeah, basically, it's what sort of negotiating what feedback you get.
So yeah, I'm getting to that. I
Yeah.
mean, my point is like for the sender to decide what to do with this all thing could be a different could be that thing. But I think if we can minimize the number of feedback you need to send from the receiver to the sender, that what should be the aim here.
Yes.
So
Yes.
basically, if ECN signal is covered by this feedback message, you should not send that, or something like that. So the only thing is like, if, in my opinion, we should be recommending the behavior. Like, I mean, like so in case of you lose something, you don't create an application that is expecting some certain sort of feedback. Like, so it crashes when it doesn't get that.
Yeah, I mean, we need to specify how you say what types of feedback you can live with, and if you have the option of sending, if the sender says I can live with types X and Y, and you can support both of them, we don't want you to send them both. We want you to pick one, and we need to specify a way of specifying that offer that says these are the alternatives, and based on that, deterministically have the receiver pick the highest priority one from the set of which it supports. And I'm not sure how
And-
to
and
specify
hope-
that in the SDP, but we need to
and
figure that
hopefully
out.
then, not changing your mind later in the session because, what is does a subsequent offer now say only the one you picked, or does it still say I could do any of these, which we might need?
And
We
I'm
might
not
need
sure-
more SDP offer answer expertise on that, which
Yes, I think so.
I might. I feel like I noticed that Paul Kizafat is in the call, and I might ask him to Medico if he's feeling sufficiently telegenic. But he doesn't have to. Maybe he's asleep.
Mozanetti, for the question about the star, about whether or not some payload types may be excluded.
Oh, excellent. Mhm.
Let's deal with the SDP issue first.
Okay.
My issue is totally different.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Paul. Well, my first comment, I was going to comment on was if you could offer multiple alternatives, then I would go farther than saying the answer should only contain one. I would think you should say it must. And normally we don't.
Yeah, it's not so much a
specify what
non-compliance
happens
as
in
if you have two
non-compliance
alternatives
cases.
which you could
So-
support. Which do we need to specify a priority so you deterministically pick a particular one?
Okay, so at that point you're saying you want a lengthier negotiation that says, the first guy says I support these 5 different ways. That the answer says,
Yeah, right.
out of those,
yeah, I mean,
support
we
these
can just
2,
let the
and then we
receiver
still
pick,
have to
but-
decide which
and
one
that may
we
be
use.
sufficient, or we can specify some way of prioritizing them so the receiver deterministically picks a particular one, given a particular way of expressing the answer, the offering preferences. And I don't know what the right answer is here.
If the offerer suggested 5 and the answer supports 2 of them, why would the offerer have any better?
It's the
be
offering
any
party which
more
has to do the
qualified to
congestion
choose
control,
which
so it
one
may
to
have
use
a
than the
preference
answer?
for
Well, no,
which
both
type of
sides do the
feedback you-
congestion control.
No. But you don't have to send and receive.
It's a bidirectional call being established by offer answer.
But are these parameters bidirectional or are they unidirectional?
That's what we need to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're bidirectional.
I don't think we want different congestion control
They're
operating in
bound. They're
different
bound to
directions.
Okay,
the.
that's a
they're
more
bound to whatever the
complicated
M-line's
question.
direction is.
Right.
So I think we may well want different congestion control operating in different directions.
Different
And-
feedback,
and we
though?
m-
I mean, different algorithms, sure, but not different feedback, I wouldn't think.
I don't know. Depends what's supported at each end.
I would hope that if you can send the feedback, you can consume the feedback also, and vice versa. I would say it will simplify our lives a lot if we assume that, if we require that.
Niels Omeyer, I just learned yesterday by a big vendor who is actually planning on combining 2 different algorithms in the different direction, which scared me as well.
Different feedback mechanisms, or
No, different algorithm, different congestion controllers.
No.
Same feedback.
No. They wanted to do REMB in one direction and transport CC in the other.
is this because they want control in both directions?
From their end, it was like a transitional thing where they don't want to support it in both directions from the get-go.
And how are they planning to negotiate
It's
this?
2 different M lines then. That must be 2 different unidirectional M lines. You can't have A equals RTCPFB mean something different for send and receive unless you split as 2 M lines with send only and receive only.
Yeah.
Because the semantics of RTCPFB doesn't have a direction. It's bound to the STPM line direction.
That one is, but the header extension, you have a direction. For the CCFB, you need the header extension, right?
No, CCFB does not need a header exception. Transport CC does,
The
however.
other one does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not following all of this, but if you got a situation where you need to split it up into two unidirectional M lines pointing in opposite directions,
Yes.
So
then you really need to ask
was
how
that
that
a,
relates to
a
bundles.
different topic? So the star, the question was whether or not it's okay when you're bundling the stuff to always apply to all payload types, or would you ever want a selection of payload types? So that made me wonder whether or not we're assuming that all repair formats, FAC and RTX, are also expected to be included, or are they mandated to be included in the set of feedback reports?
That's a very good question.
My inclination would be Jonathan Lennox
I
again.
expect yes, but I
My
don't know if
inclination would be
anybody's
say
gonna
yes
specify
because you
it.
really want to make sure that you take your repairs into account when you in your congestion control, and very bad things happen if you don't. So, I'm losing packets, so I'll send more packets is not usually a good outcome in a congestion network.
So it'd be useful to have something like that documented somewhere.
right.
Maybe if you want to say generically anything that you would report RTCP, per sender, feedback.
Yeah, I mean,
reports
I
on.
think it currently says every active SSRC, which if you're sending feedback, if you're sending retransmissions with an SSRC, then that would be included. But yeah, we should maybe clarify that it includes FEC and retransmissions and all that as well.
And then a separate point, which is maybe more confusing and maybe not the right place to specify it, but I'm confused about what the semantics are of offering all these different feedback types from a repair perspective. Because if I say I can support both ACK, CCFB, and I support NAC, does that mean that if I send you ACK, CCFB, I'm implicitly asking for a retransmission and I don't need to send the NAC, or I have to also send the NAC for the gap that I already reported in the CCFB in order to get the retransmission?
The NAC thing is only advisory anyway. You don't have to send the NAC, but
So I'm confused about what the implementations should do.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
think we
also
need some guidance about that,
Yeah.
because protocol-wise, it'd be inefficient if we had to NAC.
Yeah.
But right now, it's totally unspecified that a gap in the CCFB means retransmit.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure.
All right. I have Xiaoqing and I might ask Paula another question later, but in the meantime,
Hi, can I talk now?
sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. I just want to maybe provide a little bit of perspective from an algorithm design sort of a perspective, since I'm kind of going through the journey right now. We've actually implemented one version of NADA that works with RTCP control messages and use RDT-based congestion signal. And right now we're using the version from Google, the transport feedback. And of course, we're looking forward to use the RAMCAT, so this new version of congestion control feedback. My main point is that usually from an algorithm design point of view, if the receiver could provide alternate versions of congestion feedback, usually there is a preference for the congestion control algorithm to pick one of them. Right now, what I'm seeing is that between the version of Google and the RTCP feedback is always there. So then it's more like both feedback messages come back, and the sender have the freedom of you only sort of responding to one of them. But if, let's say, a third one is on the table, maybe for the perspective of reserving bandwidth, it might be better for the sender to specify a priority list. So this way the receiver can sort of conform to the priority and then, save backward bandwidth if needed. So that would be my preference. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these things should all be reporting essentially the same information. So there shouldn't be any point in having more than one of them.
Yes, and then usually there is a convenience in, processing different feedback messages. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. By the way, the other thing is typically the algorithm has a good understanding of the frequency of the preference of the frequency of the feedback. So potentially that's another information that can be added to the negotiation room.
Yeah, the frequency of the feedback, I think, is something you can influence by the RTCP bandwidth fraction. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's something there's an RMCAT draft which talks about that. And once we finalize this one, and the plan is to go and give some guidance there. And yeah, we will, I am sure, have a discussion about how to signal that at that point.
Okay, thank you. That's all my input. Thanks.
Thanks.
Harald Alvestrand, Google. We should not violate the KISS principle. If we start doing new negotiation mechanisms into the form of SDP in order to do things like priority order, this massively violates the KISS principle. The simplest way you can do this is to declare it bundle identical, mandate the star, mandate that responder sends back a subset of the proposal, and it would probably make life simpler if you mandate that when two mechanisms have near identical semantics, the responder sends back only one.
Yes.
I do think that we could have feedback mechanisms that where the semantics are different enough that we could seriously have to support two or more. For instance, if you want to have something that tells you which is the current golden frame, or that you require urgently require a keyframe on layer 7. But as long as semantics are identical, it's okay to say that you must or should choose only one. Keep it simple, please.
Assuming
it's the
that,
only way I'll get it implemented.
Assuming that meets everyone's needs, I am very much in favor of simplicity. I think we need to figure out how to specify identical or nearly identical semantics such that people all do it the same way. And I don't know how to specify. I don't know what words to use for that. So if people have wording suggestions, and if people have technical suggestions for how we should phrase it, because I am not an expert in how offer answer is used, so I would very much appreciate input on this.
So Jahed again, I mean, kind of echoing what Xiaoqing said, like when I get information, explicit or implicit information, as a condition control algorithm designer, I mean, I have my preference. I'll handle it. If you give me more information, better. I can choose from what I want to use for now to change my state. Now we're talking about sending back condition control feedback. I think the draft has a rationale of why we have a new condition control feedback. Like there is actually says what is missing on the other signals. So I mean, for the implementers, we also have kind of sort of like sorted out like why you need a new kind of condition control feedback, and that to me says like, well, if you offer multiple, if I get an offer from a sender like, well, for the maximum interoperability, I get like 4 things. Then as a receiver, I would like to pick the one that has most of the information that's needed to be sent to the sender in a nicer way. I can send multiple options, like multiple feedback messages, but I know then I'm wasting my artistic bandwidth. So I don't see a point like sending multiple things. So I'll go for the simplest thing, the KISS thing, offer, sender, whatever. Send.
I mean, I can write in the draft if the offer has multiple congestion control feedback options, then the answer should pick one.
Yeah.
But it's not, if that is specific enough about what multiple congestion control feedback formats is.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's a pretty vague term, but if people think that's sufficient, that's easy to write.
I mean, we have like, I mean, we can talk about the perhaps write about what are the multiple condition signal we're talking about, right? We already mentioned them in the draft. So I don't like. So my point of view is like in this draft, I don't want to see like really big analysis of like using different thing and different way, different order. That's not this draft should do.
No, sure. I am happy to write the simple thing in the draft. We just need to phrase it in a way that everyone agrees that it means the same thing. I mean, we need to agree on the right wording for it.
Niels Omer. I think the most complicated scenario, I think we like obviously as the offerer, you need to offer all the things you support. And then the most complicated scenario I can come up with is basically that the offerer said, like, I want to bundle everything here, all my options. And the answerer basically breaks the bundle up into multiple bundle groups and then says, like, because of like I'm doing video over this machine and audio over this other machine and they don't both support the same thing, therefore I want like different feedback mechanisms for the two different bundle groups. But I agree with Harald that like the easiest is to basically say like you have to choose, even if you break up the bundle groups, you have to use one.
Yeah.
Period. And
No,
like,
sure.
If people want that more complicated, then like let them find out the solution for that later.
I think I'm actually thinking a much more basic thing, which is, you know, the likely scenario is that you offer that you support this mechanism and you support the mechanism Google uses, right? And that's fine, and we can say pick one. The question, the difficulty is how do we write down if you get this thing or the Google thing, you need to choose between them because we haven't got a reference to the Google thing. And I can write a congestion control feedback format, but then it's a little vague as to what you mean by a congestion control feedback format. We don't want someone picking some other TCP extension, which isn't really congestion control, and using that.
Yeah, I mean,
And if people think just saying congestion control feedback is sufficient, then I'll happily go with that.
Yeah, there was an ID for that, which is an expired ID, but it can be a more informative reference.
It's expired, and it's not. You know, if it's expired but is close enough to what people are implementing, then I can just reference that. And if it isn't, then but I don't know.
No, well, there's two. There's REMB and there's transport season. Yeah. So right. Which actually is an interesting question because, I mean, it's clear that transport CC and this are essentially the same information. REMB is not. It's the receiver side.
Yeah.
So it's not clear what that should be.
Yes.
And then, I guess, you know.
Yeah. I mean, do we leave it vague and hope people do the right thing, or do we try and specify it?
EG and then reference informatively that the expired drafts is fine, I think. And then the other, and then I guess ECN is a proper subset of what this provides, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the ECN thing is the ECN thing is a subset of it, but you need to specify. You need something to augment it with if you wanted to use that for
probing or whatever.
And probably no one will ever do it, but one could.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, Linux. The other thing I was thinking on the other one that's sort of unclear to me, but I think I know what it should be, is NAC. And I feel like that's a different semantic. The semantic of NAC is not just I lost this packet, but I lost this packet and I still have enough time in my playback buffers that it would be useful to me if you retransmitted it. There's a difference, which is, you know, semantically different enough. I feel like it should not supersede NAC.
Yeah, sure.
But
sure.
That should be a consensus call.
Yeah.
And stated explicitly.
I think we all understand roughly what we want to happen.
Yeah. NAC is the one that I feel like I've heard multiple.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The NAC thing. I've seen so many creative interpretations of specifications. I want to get the wording right so everyone implements it in the same way.
What? Oh, oops.
No. You
Paul, sorry, we accidentally could you rejoin, Paul? We accidentally evicted you. There you are. There he goes.
Hi. I just wanted to comment on one thing that went by there in the discussion.
Your audio is very congested, Paul. Try turning off your video. It's possible it's.
If I knew how to turn off.
Now it's better. I think it may have converged, but all right. All right. No, no.
Okay.
So what were you saying?
There was a comment about what to do if the offerer offered a bundle and the answer is split it. I would think if you were making multiple alternatives in the offer and then the bundle gets split, that the two should be treated separately at that point. I mean, if I understand, all of this negotiation is per, what do you call it? Media stream, media session?
Media description, I think. Well, that's what we're asking.
No.
M-line.
I mean, the thing that there's one of in a bundle.
Oh, right, those. Bundle group.
IP address and port.
Connection.
Pair. Five tuple, whatever. Whatever that is, all this stuff should be per one
Did
of
we miss
those.
this in taxonomy?
Seems to me.
Yeah. So, about the other question I was going to ask you, as hopefully the SCP expert, is what should we do? So, assuming that you do have that where offer presents a list and answerer picks one, what should happen in subsequent offers?
Mhm.
Should you still list all your capabilities, or should you list only the one you converged on?
The general answer is you should always list all of them, because at the time you're making this offer, you really don't know what's going to happen. You don't even know if you're going to be talking to the same person, in the answer. Now it gets complicated here because all this stuff. I mean, I don't know if it's complicated or not. You want to offer it as if you were going to end up talking to somebody else potentially, and you wanted to give them all the alternatives. On the other hand, you want to end up converging on the previous choice if everything else is otherwise the same. And I don't know, if it's even possible to shift mechanisms in midstream in one connection. Presumably you don't want to do that.
Yeah. The most slightly off mic says, if it's complicated to know if it's complicated, then it's complicated.
So like I say, the general thing is, don't assume that your subsequent offer is going to be received by the same party.
So in other words,
as
your subsequent offer should list all the choices again, all the choices you support again, but the subsequent answer should always pick the same thing as the previous offer answer exchange.
I mean, if you're talking to the same,
if it still makes
yes,
sense.
but the subsequent offer answer might be in the opposite direction.
Right. This is why I don't do signal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If a subsequent offer, basically, even if in the subsequent offer answer, if it's in the other direction, even if you would have chosen to pick something else, pick what actually was picked the former time. Don't gratuitously change.
Carol.
I don't know this, John.
I would say if the offer is, the way I usually state this is you should send everything that you support and you're currently willing and able to use. In the case of an offer going the opposite direction of the previous one, I would think that you would want to say everything that you're capable of and interested in potentially using, which should include the one that you're currently using. And again, now when you're going the opposite direction, it's pretty. The situation that you might end up talking to somebody different is, well, maybe it's not less likely.
I'm more concerned.
But yeah,
I'm more concerned about the case where you're talking to the same person, but they have a different opinion of which mechanism is best than you do. Harold is on the mic.
I've been waiting here for a while.
Sorry.
We've cleared up that keep it simple isn't quite as simple as we could hope for, in that we cannot say much about all the other possible mechanisms because that's an unbounded set.
Yep.
We'll invent a new one tomorrow.
Yep.
And this draft is talking about this mechanism, and it should recommend that if you pick this one, don't pick the ones that do the same thing. You will know that. The implementer will know that. Others won't. And B, when you renegotiate, prefer to select the same thing you did last time. So these are the two things that should go in this draft, and I don't think we should say much more.
Okay. Okay. If people think that's sufficient, I'm happy to try and do that.
Actually, maybe a question. For
Well, that seems to raise an interesting question, which is, I mean, this is talking about one mechanism, and yet we're often a discussion of how does one negotiate in the presence of support for multiple mechanisms, and if that doesn't belong in here, which I guess it maybe doesn't, then presumably it belongs someplace else in something yet to be written.
Well, I mean, I think the suggestion for here was just say if you are offered multiple congestion control feedback mechanisms, pick one, and leave it vague as to what multiple congestion control feedback mechanisms means, because the implementer will probably do the right thing.
On a practical note for implementers, maybe a question for Harold. The alternatives that we're talking about are really abandoned IDs. So is that because you're fine with moving to anything that this addresses in the new drafts, or that's because the current experimental solution is already working and you don't see a need to iterate on it anymore, and it's going to live forever, and we need to actually work on systems that support it indefinitely?
Harald speaking with my Google hat on. The reason why the drafts have not progressed has been because I have been unable to make the group that is in charge of this particular work take the time to update them. I'm sorry about that. It was not my decision. I have gotten comments from that group saying that they will consider implementing this mechanism and switching to it when we stop fiddling with it.
We're trying.
So I have hope that we will switch away. I can give no guarantees, but we're not likely to do anything new with RAN. So it's Transport CC Transport CC has changed after the draft, so it's not quite backwards compatible. But I can give no guarantees for that. I hope we can switch to this one.
Okay.
By the way, Transport CC is actually not documented even in the draft. It actually doesn't actually sit. The RTCFB for Transport CC doesn't exist anywhere in any draft. You just sniff Chrome's SDP and you find out that that's what you have to use. The draft itself actually doesn't say there's a RTCFB Transport CC. But let's ignore those because your draft is not going to deal with those. But your draft probably should deal with the NAC issue, because I think Jonathan and I are on different pages about how that should be addressed. And I'm more interested in having a single solution than my solution. I don't think we should leave it open. If you want to go Jonathan's approach, that's fine. But mandate that every ACT at CCFB has to have a NAC on top of it if there's a hole, or say that it obviates the need for the NAC.
Sure.
It serves the same purpose.
Yeah, I mean, on the signaling side, I would very much appreciate people to suggest text, because I know I will mess it up.
No, but this is more the RTCP semantics level, whether NAC and TCFB serve redundant purposes or different purposes.
Does a hole in the CCFB message serve the same purpose as a NAC, or do you still have to explicitly send a NAC to have the same semantic as NAC formerly did?
So I mean, if
it's not NAC.
I mean, if you get feedback for whatever reason that a packet is lost and you support retransmission, there is nothing stopping you retransmitting it. The same way, if you get a NAC, there's nothing stopping you ignoring the NAC and not retransmitting it. These are all advisory.
Yeah. What do we recommend?
To be honest, I don't care. We should pick one.
So,
if you see there's a gap in the sequence space, as far as I'm concerned, you can take your pick as to whether you send it or not. If we want to specify something in here, I'm happy to do it, and I don't care which one we pick. So tell me what to write.
So Jahid here. So my personal opinion on the NAC thing. I mean, here if you context this idea, like this is about congestion control and all this thing, and actually you will get this packet loss information in many ways, but still maybe you would like to send NAC. So I cannot say here, and for my condition, if you look into my condition control signal, I see like a gap, and you actually automatically sends an iframe for your receiver, fine, do that. But your receiver might have other reasons to send a NAC. So combining these two different contexts into here and saying like, well, pick one, like don't send if you're sending this one, a more detailed like logs information, don't send NAC, it'd be a bit tough, I guess, right?
Mills-Netican. So I disagree because I think in the very beginning of RMCAT, we identified that this feedback is not just for congestion control. This feedback is useful for both congestion control and repair, and it will impact things like FEC percentages and retransmit decisions and things like that. So I think it was very clear at the very beginning that this feedback is going to be useful for both congestion and for repair.
The feedback provides you the information about which packets are lost. Whether you use that to send retransmissions or not, yeah. I mean, if we want to make it explicit that this is used to trigger those things, then we can, but I don't think we want to require the fact that there is a gap in the sequence space to require a retransmission.
But
it's a hint that one may retransmit at that point.
But I think the point of all this is to have good interoperability between senders and receivers. So it's just a question of whether or not a receiver can know what it should send in order to get something that it wants out of a sender.
But not retransmitting doesn't affect interoperability. In the worst case, it affects quality. And
I'm talking about interoperability of a mechanism. In this case, interoperability of a retransmission mechanism or a FEC repair mechanism.
I'd allow this, John. One of the discussions I have been involved in feedback format suggested that one should extend the format to have to give the explicitly the boundary between not interesting to retransmit and interesting to retransmit. That's something I don't think we have in the feedback format now, and I'm not suggesting we add it. It's just one of those things that indicates that, yes, sometimes you want the retransmission and sometimes you don't.
Well, I mean, we could use the NAC for that mechanism if people think that's the right way to go. It's certainly a way of being explicit.
I would have assumed that I would negotiate NAC explicitly separately from this CCFB, and this is only for bandwidth. So obviously you can use it for that, and actually it saves you something if you use it for both purposes. But I think the main point is that both sides need to be on the same page on what this negotiated thing is used for. I think as ugly as it is, I would suggest actually then provide two different options for CCFB. One is like, okay, let's use it only for bandwidth, or let's skip the NAC part and basically do it for retransmission and bandwidth. And then you're very clear.
I mean, then we're getting away from simple, but yes, we can add a parameter of some sort if we care. Yeah.
John, thanks. I mean, the other difference is CCFB feedback. Oh, Paul, are you still waiting, or are you just sitting there?
I'm just sitting here.
Yeah, the other difference is that NACs can be sent, can and usually are sent more than once. They're sent repeatedly, whereas CCFB is once and done. And you don't want, if there's some packet you really need for repair and your CCFB feedback gets lost, you're just out of luck. Whereas with NACs, you typically, retransmit for the duration of the period in which it would be useful to you. So that's an important difference. And that's why I think.
I mean, the simplest thing is probably to say if you want retransmissions, send a NAC, or to say that this doesn't imply that retransmissions are required, although obviously nothing is stopping you from sending them.
So explicit retransmission, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing is probably to write that the receipt of one of these feedback messages indicating packet loss does not explicitly request that the lost packets are retransmitted. Although, whether or not we want to put a parenthetical that, well, obviously if you have some retransmission mechanism, you could always retransmit anything you feel like. Yeah, sure.
So Jahed, I mean, Mo, I completely sympathize to your idea of like having this kind of feedback impact on broader than just congestion control. So I agree with that. I'm sending this feedback, and you can do congestion control. You can do a lot of other things with that. You can have a quality of experience kind of map and stuff like that. So the thing here is like, I don't want to like encourage more than, I mean, what can I offer here? I mean, you are encouraged to do a lot of use this in a lot of cases, but for me, NAC is basically an application telling me, can you send this to me explicitly on a particular case? And you actually gain something, but not sending it if you can get it from this feedback message. But I don't see like we should mix them up. I mean, more or less keeping it separate, give all the information, because I don't know what sender is going to do with this information.
I think that the problem to my mind is that there are lots of different interpretations of what NAC means. Whether it means I want you to resend this, or whether it's say I didn't get this, retransmit it if you feel like it.
Yeah. So,
but my problem is basically I don't, from a receiver point of view, I don't know like what congestion control that sender is going to use, because I have a feedback message that is not coupled to a congestion control, or what the sender will do. So I will not prevent a receiver to ask for more explicit thing just because it's sending this feedback message. So that would be my logic.
I mean, if you just send this feedback mechanism and the sender decides to send you retransmission, if you've negotiated retransmission, the sender decides to send you them or it doesn't. I mean, it's going to work in either case. The question is whether you want an explicit, you have to send me retransmissions if you get these, or whether you're comfortable with the sender picking and choosing. I think the simplest is probably for this document to say that this does not imply a gap in the sequence number space does not imply a retransmission request.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Let's make it explicit.
Yeah, seems good. And therefore, if somebody did negotiate both this and NAC an offer, and you're willing to do both, you should negotiate both.
Yes. Yes. But equally, if you see there's a gap and you wish to retransmit a packet and you've negotiated retransmission, feel free.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. What else do we have? So
CCFB does not obviate NAC. I think
so. I think there are two parts. The first is that a CCFB feedback message indicating a gap in the received sequence number space does not imply a retransmission request. And if you want NACs, you should explicitly negotiate them. The second was that someone should send me some text about what to write about all the rest of it. About the offer, about how to negotiate the offer answer stuff. But so the offer answer stuff, I think the suggestion was if you are offered multiple congestion control feedback mechanisms, you should pick one. I do not know how to write that in a way which is compliant with all the various offer answer extensions. So if someone could suggest text, that would be helpful and would make this go faster.
He says, looking at me.
No, I can look at someone else if they're willing to.
You're actually a co-author on this. So.
Okay, what else do we have? The congestion control feedback is potentially unbounded in size, depending on the relationship between the packet rate of the sender and the feedback interval. You could potentially end up with some very large packets here. We need to provide some guidance for what to do. That should probably say if you have too many to fit in the MTU, you should split it up. And we have the other draft in RMCAT, which talks about how to pick an appropriate feedback rate such that this doesn't happen. And it should probably point to that to say, go follow that guidance. So this reports SSRCs and sequence numbers per SSRC. Some people have implemented this congestion control with a single sequence number space in a header extension across all packets. Obviously, it's possible to map from this to the single sequence number space. If you do it with the SSRC and the sequence numbers per SSRC, it allows you to do different flows with different congestion control algorithms, whereas the other approach requires you to congestion control the aggregates.
Or do the opposite mapping.
Or I mean, it's hard to if all you're getting is feedback on these are the sequence numbers you've got. It's hard to take them apart. We should probably try and put some guidance for if you are using a congestion controller that requires a single sequence number space. Here's how you can reconstruct that space. At least sketch out a hint of an algorithm there. Obviously, there's a possibility that feedback messages should get lost. We should perhaps say some words for what the congestion control algorithm should do in that case. I think the specifics are clearly, dependent on the congestion control. You probably don't want to say if you've lost a feedback packet, everything in that packet was lost. Equally, you probably don't want to assume everything was received. I don't know quite what the right thing to do there is. Probably assume that the loss rate was comparable to the last interval where you got feedback. With some decaying, if you keep losing them, you should gradually slow down.
Jahid again, I think in the eval test draft in RMCAT, we have a test case that actually chokes your reverse bandwidth. And so idea there is like you lost your feedback. So if the implementers would like to try out their survivability of when the feedback packets are lost, they should go and test that one. I don't think this need to be addressed. I mean, we can say talk about the implication of what if you lost what you lost. We can talk about that, but what the condition control should do, I don't think we should put any recommendation in there. This document here.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
We could actually refer to that one and say okay, go and test yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should probably say the congestion control needs to specify what to do, and assuming that everything was received or everything is lost may not be the right thing. And we can presumably also refer to things like the circuit breaker draft to say if this stops coming back for too long, you should just stop sending because probably the path is broken. Okay. I say hope to be ready for the working group last call for Montreal. Maybe now you've just made this a much bigger job, so we'll see how that goes. But hopefully we can make progress on this. Okay, thank you.
And finally, Ronnie is here to talk about the status of the payload working group. I think hit the full screen button, there, and then you can switch tabs and hit full screen again. And now you want to hit present there. Up at the top.
Go over the slide.
There you are. Here, you can drive the slides, Ronnie.
Okay, so I just want to provide some information about the status of the payload working group. Since we are not meeting, we haven't met for a couple of meetings already. Most of the people who write those documents are not even here. So currently we have the one that's really, the people are really here are the flexible FEC schema 18. It was a proof of publication but was withdrawn since there is an open issue about the SDP. We are going to have today at 6 o'clock conference call trying to figure out to finish this issue. I'll try to attend and hopefully that we'll be able to do that. Yes, Mo.
Mozanetti, we had a long discussion between the authors today, and we think we've been able to resolve all of the issues that have come up from this. Unfortunately, I think the solution is going to be simplicity and clarity in the draft, but unfortunately, I think it's substantive. I don't think it's a minor editorial change, so it may not be as easy as just keeping it in the editor's queue.
We may need to bring it back to the working group.
We'll at the end of today's meeting, which is in an hour, we'll decide. But I think everybody's going to think that these are enough changes to maybe need more eyeballs to review it.
Okay. Yes,
this is Ben speaking as a short timer AD. It hasn't really been withdrawn. It's just in point raised. So it's not going to go into the RC editor queue until whoever the AD happens to be releases it to it. However, if we're talking about material changes, obviously the working group needs to look at that if they're relatively well-contained changes, it might be so simple as just send a request for objections to the working group, give them a little bit of time, and
Okay.
then whoever the AD, who probably won't be me unless you can get this all figured out by tomorrow,
No.
to then go ahead and release it for publication.
Okay. So we'll see. I mean, basically, I hope all the people that were in this discussion will be in the conference call today, because it's Bernard and I think Bernard is the one that's not one of the authors, right? Okay.
And the one thing I'm not sure about, and other ADs are not sure about what the answer to this is what happens when my yes ballot goes away on Wednesday to something that has already been in the approved point raised state. Because it seems to me that area directors and secretariat may have a different idea of what happens. So this will be an interesting experiment and process.
Okay.
Yeah, process weenie here. This is Barry. I'll be the AD taking this over. And I mean, I think technically once it's out of the IASG evaluation state and into the approved state, it can go ahead, but that's up to the AD. And the other IASG members can complain if I make a stupid choice. So depending on exactly what happens, we may decide to send it back through another round of IASG evaluation or not, or perhaps to IETF last call or not. And at the moment, we'll just leave it in approved point raised state and see what happens.
Okay. There's another, the IETF payload TSV SCIS was sent to publication, and it's waiting for the AD or to the new AD.
Oh, but the ADs are not paying attention
Yeah,
now.
the AD is not paying attention. So there's a document that went to publication but has not been reviewed yet by the AD. So, okay. It's okay. I'm just saying that that's where it stands. Okay. I want to go to the next slide before I go to this slide. So we have the working group document we have is the payload Tetra 02. What happened here is that during the time in which this document was in the working group, ETSI registered the payload type name in the general payload registry, IANA payload registry, in the general IANA media registry.
Yeah.
Go to this because there are two registries. That's a slide I skipped. So the authors came and asked, what should we do with that? And the proposal I made to them, and they did respond them after discussing also, we discussed it also with the area director, is that they will look at what was registered by ETSI, and if they need something different, then they can use a different payload type name in order to register that.
This is Ben again. If I recall, the authors are also from ETSI, right?
The what?
If I recall, the authors of the draft are also from ETSI. Is that correct?
Are the authors of the draft also from
No.
ETSI?
No, they're not.
They're not. Okay,
They're not.
I misunderstood. I thought that they were.
No, they're not.
I had also asked if the authors and the people who registered it from ETSI could possibly talk to each other and figure out the mismatch. I mean, if they can't, they can't. But if they can, that would be helpful.
Okay, I'll try, because I got the question from the authors of this draft, what to do. I sent them a response. They did respond back. They asked me if it's a problem if we don't have anything to do, we just withdraw that, and that's all. But I need to talk with them again and figure out. I didn't get a response after I sent them the last message about if there is a difference, what you want to do, where you want to go with that. So
Right. The cleanest solution would be to resolve, would be to harmonize the two.
yeah, of course.
But if we can't, we can't.
We have it in a different draft, this situation. There is the RTP JPEG XS. It's a new payload type, and it's need reviews. And after some reviews, we'll probably do working group plus call. The other draft that had the problem was the TTML. the media subtype was registered by W3C in the general media subtype registry, IANA. But these documents, they didn't specify an RTP payload. They just registered the media subtype. So after discussing the authors of this draft and the group from W3C, the conclusion was that this draft will only describe the payload type, the RTP payload, and they'll use the registration that was done by the W3C in the IANA media type registry. And I'll have a slide to discuss this. It's a problem. Now, the last one is the VP9 RTP.
Yeah, so my co-author said he had an update for it, which I thought meant he was going to actually publish a new rev, but what he did was he pushed something to the repo and didn't do anything else. I assume he intended that I actually published the new revision, but he did not communicate this to me, so I take that as partially my fault. I will try to push a new revision with the change he made.
Okay, so so now I go to this issue of the registries. We have two registries, and one is the IANA media type registry, where you register everything, and then there's the RTP parameters registry, which registers the media type. Currently, they're not synchronized. They were supposed to be synchronized. The registration should have been the same in both of them, but they were not synchronized. Some of the payloads are only in the general media types and not in the RTP one. So I talked Colin is not listening, but you're listening. But I talked with my previous, our previous co-chairs in this work, like with Magnus, and about some history about why we're using both of them. And the conclusion was that, first of all, something that the payload working group just need to do is to just, first of all, synchronize them so they'll have the same information in both of them. The other thing is that my understanding is that the RTP ones was just to have some, was inherited because of previously we had the static payload type numbers. And once we finish with the static payload number, we just created a registry that will register the payload type number, the subtype names without payload type numbers because it's a dynamic and it's there because of that. So I don't know if there's still a real, and according to Magnus, he assumes that people were usually looking at the media type registry and not at the RTP one. So question, what should we do about it?
Hi, Colin Perkins. So the intent here, ever since we got to the point where we were running out of static types, is that the media type names are the name for the payload types.
Okay.
And anything else has, if we have another table for IANA, it must be automatically derived from the media type registry, because the media type registry is the authoritative source here.
So why do we have the RTP the RTP one?
Historical accident, because it existed before that we made this decision.
Okay, so one of the issues that we have there is that the registration procedures are not the same for both registries.
The only way of specifying this ought to be by registering a media type. The other registry should be closed and should have been closed for about 20 years.
So we mean to register a media type. A registration in a media type is by first come, first serve.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what the rules are, but
yeah.
I don't think it is, but
it's expert review.
Okay.
The thing was that the expert review didn't look if it's an RTP payload type and what if there's a document. I think the RTP ones requires a document. because of the RTP payload specification.
No, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, the issue here, I agree with everything Colin said, that we should get rid of the RTP registry, take any information, right, synchronize it into the media types registry. The difficulty is that the media types experts don't know about RTP stuff. So if they are alerted that this registration involves RTP parameters, then they can contact RTP experts to help them do their review.
Okay, so we need to.
The problem is if the people registering a media type don't give them any indication that that's the case, they can't always figure it out, and you may get something that slips through.
Yes. If I remember correctly, the RFC, which defines the fact that the media types are used for RTP, says that you must specify in the registration that this is present, but maybe the media type reviewers are not being made aware that this is something they need to look out for.
Because everybody always does all of the musts in everything. Right? This is the problem.
Because all the expert reviewers always pay attention.
And right. So if the media,
this is one of the less.
If the people doing the registration miss that, and the media type experts miss that, then you're going to have a media type that's registered but has not had any RTP experts take a look at it. Now, my sense is that that's not a disaster.
Right.
The media type registration can always be updated later or marked obsolete in some way if it turns out it's a completely stupid idea or that kind of thing. So I'm not terribly worried about that. I'm more worried about having out of sync duplicated information or information where some of it's in one place and the other of it is in another.
Yeah.
So I mean, my suggestion would be that
I'm in queue over there, but I'm lazy.
My suggestion would be that we either get rid of the other registry or probably, given that it's been there for a very long time, tell the IANA that whenever they register a media type that mentions that it is suitable for RTP, they need to update this registry. And I think they already have that guidance, but they may need reminding of it.
Yeah, John, thanks. So the one thing that I'm just looking at the IANA page right now, and the odd thing is that the reference for this registry is RFC 4855, which is specifically says use the media types registry, don't create a new registry. So it's possible that this table shouldn't actually even exist and is wrong. IANA made a mistake when they created it.
So that's what I'm suggesting, that we make sure that the media types registry has all of the information from the RTP parameters registry that's appropriate. The RTP parameters registry be closed for new registrations and something be put in there that points them to the media types registry.
Yeah, I think not just close to new registrations, but actually tombstoned and say this doesn't exist.
Blanked out with a message in it that says to register here, go see the media types registration procedures. And be sure to tell them that it's RTP related.
Which is what 4855
reference
says.
Reference over there. I think that's busy work. That's probably not the best idea. I don't object to that, but yeah.
So
yeah, if there are lots of people referring to this registry, they can be pointed at the other place, and they'll get used to that.
So how do we get? I mean, here that's why I go back to this slide, to this problem that we have with this one, where the registration came there, in the middle of a process in the working group. We were working on that. So, and we weren't aware that it is happening at all. And that is a problem.
Right, and that's why I'm saying that the problem with any of this is that if the media types experts are not alert to the fact that this is an RTP related thing, they can't loop you guys in. And I don't know how to fix that.
Okay.
I don't think there's any way to fix that.
So a little bit of the history there. The reason you're seeing the weirdness with 4855 is that actually updated or obsoleted an older RFC, which is one that created all this. But we do still have a difference in the registration policy for each one of them. And I haven't actually found the point that makes a distinction, but the RTP media type has a, I believe it was spec required or standards action, and I haven't figured out where the or comes from, which is a higher requirement than for the media types. I think at one time that was intentional because we thought it was harder to get payload media types right or something like that. But so there's a bunch of things to rationalize here.
Well, I mean, the or there means that if you're doing a standards track RFC, you don't need the expert review. Well, but that's the policy that Ben just quoted says that if you're doing a standards track RFC, you don't need the expert review. If you're not, then the document has to be reviewed by the expert. In practice, we presume the experts are watching the standards track RFCs anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, in practice, when we made this, maybe we screwed up and generated X to work for ourselves, but when ever since we made this policy, we've been sending these for media type review.
And we also, during the write-up, before the write-up, we also send a message for asking for reviews from the media type. We always do that. We send all this for review. It's part of the document because I have to put it in the write-up.
I thought we had updated the media type registration template to include something that says, is this suitable for RTP? But I may be misremembering that. Or maybe it got lost in a later update.
All right, either it wasn't done or got lost in an update. But that can certainly be...
Should I let Paul in?
Paul.
Paul's been waiting for a bit.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
This issue that the experts aren't doing their job seems like, I mean, who's picking the experts? Yeah.
It's not that the experts aren't doing their jobs. It's that in some cases, the requests are going through the media types registry, which does not have experts that know about RTP. And the requests are not tagged in any way that tells the media types experts that they need to consult the RTP people. So it's not that anybody isn't doing their jobs, it's that the registrations are not clear enough to direct them the right way.
Then, well, there's something wrong here. I mean, right now, that header for the registry indicates the 40, what is it, 48, whatever, for the RTP one. As well as something else, which I presume is just for the regular media. So both of those, control access to this registry, presumably, or define procedures for this registry. Seems like there needs to be whether the other one needs to specify something. There needs to be some way to definitively conclude which set of rules apply when evaluating one.
Right. The problem is that both registries have media types in them. So somebody comes and says, "I want to register media."
I mean, I think we've already established that one of them is the RTP specific one is effectively redundant and obsolete. I'm concerned about the other one.
Right. So got it. So what we have to figure out is how to make sure that somebody comes in and registers a media type. The media types experts know that they need to consult the RTP people because this one is related to RTP. And there isn't any way to do that now unless the registrant says it in their registration request. We've relatively recently, maybe 4 years ago, updated the media types registration procedures. We could certainly do an update to that updates the template and says, are there RTP implications to this registration? And hopefully the people would then say, oh yeah, I better fill this field in and things would happen better. That's the best way I can come up with to do it.
Okay.
You have somebody else in the queue.
Yep.
So are you done, Paul? Okay. There we go.
Hi, James Sanford, author of the TTML document. I just wanted to add a little bit more context in that the case that we have had, the media type was created, and I guess that the original authors either didn't consider that RTP might be an option for transporting it, or it was just seen as one of the many options amongst all of the groups. So in that case, the media type was created, and then we came along afterwards and said, let's create a payload for this over RTP. So in that case, it's less them noticing that it's suitable for RTP. It's us picking something out that is not unsuitable for RTP, and we would like to use it over RTP. So it's perhaps a bit more complicated than just, is this suitable for RTP?
All right then. Yeah, that's great. That's all. Let me know, and then we'll get signed. Okay then.
Have you finished, James?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Press the red button. Right. Okay. Colin Perkins. So I just looked at the media type registration form. I believe it looks like there's this format is framed checkbox on the media type registration. And if I'm remembering right, I think the intent was that was a signal that the framing was RTP, and maybe the intent of that has gotten lost over time and was badly documented at the time, most likely. But we may need to go back and double check some things, and maybe live at the mic line isn't the right time to do that.
So if this is what is implied, then it's should be only in the direction for the registration procedure in the registry. Yeah. We don't need to update the
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, and that's 4855.
Okay, so just to conclude, okay, synchronize both registry, make the media type, close it.
But the RTP parameters.
The RTP, the RTP parameters close this one.
Right.
And we have to look how to make it more clear that if it's an RTP payload that's being registered, then it should be reviewed by some RTP.
And now go to the other slide that talks about the ETSI one, just so I have that in my face, the other way. Now, for that particular registration, is there a problem that needs to be fixed in the registry right now?
I don't know yet, because what I asked them to go discuss about it and decide what they want to do.
Waiting for authors to decide.
One of the options that was made for that was, if it's much different, okay, then this payload, this one, they'll have to register under a different name, because that's okay also to have a different name.
Right. We can, depending on what the changes are, we can either update that registration or make a new one with a different name.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how to fix that case.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other is not a problem. TTML.
There's actually instructions in 4855 on what to do if there's an existing type registered for non-RTP, and then you're adding an RTP one, and also rules that yes, it has to have the same format and the same parameter set. So probably just read the relevant sections of 4855, and that'll hopefully tell us what we should do. Hopefully we were smarter back then than we are now.
And you see, it's funny because these two things happened suddenly, and for many years we didn't run into this situation, and suddenly we had two cases of problem.
Yes, but fortunately they thought about it in 2007. So
okay. Thank you. I think that's what.
Okay. All right, so any other business for AVT Core or payload, or I suppose even XR block if you're feeling ambitious? All right, well then, see you all in Montreal and the rest of the week. Yeah, and in the rest of the week. Did everybody get the blue sheets? We have one up here. Or should be, and where's the other one? Somebody have the other blue sheets? This is when we would have had a social.
Swing or something? What's wrong with you?